1. Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. I hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far, and welcome to episode 40 of the Breaking Point podcast. We've got another classic here for you guys. No guests today because the last few weeks have been jam-packed with guests. Hopefully more to come in the coming weeks as well. But wanted to take a little bit of a breather with that, bring back Austin, bring back Lionman, and just dive into a lot of the stuff that's happened this past week. Plenty's happened, roster announcement, roster rumors hitting the timeline like crazy. I've got the OpTic Dallas stuff going on as well. Plenty of other things to dive into also. Very much intrigued to your thoughts down below. I'm not doing one of my own videos. Let's stop the intro for now, but do appreciate those of you who like listening on all the audio platforms. The support over the last couple of episodes on YouTube especially, and live here on Twitch has been spectacular. So thanks very much again. Austin, how are you doing, fella? I saw that RST signed a contract today. I don't know if there's been a lot of contracts being signed, let's just say the last few hours. I don't know how things are going on the FaZe guys end right there, because that's kind of been the only complication for your off season, right? It's been like a lot of the players, and I don't know about you and the rest of the guys, but not being technically like signed back, even though the team's going to stay the same. But there's been a bit of that going on.
Honestly, I don't know. I've been so after the season ended, I honestly haven't been connected at all, so I don't really know. I don't know what the signings are for, but hopefully one day soon I'll be able to join in on that.
Lion, how you doing? I'm liking this background, by the way. We used to have the green screen vibes going on. We got rid of that because I don't know, it's a bit more homely,
I agree. The green screen was pointless. I think we were gonna use them properly at some stage, like all three of us, and have like backgrounds and stuff. But yeah, no, kind of pointless. What have you been up to, Rab? Let's switch it up, hey.
Oh wow, that was a serious switch up. No, I mean nothing crazy. I started going to the gym a bit last couple of weeks. So just about
Jack
it.
is
So
coming out.
I go gym Monday, Tuesday, I swim on Wednesday, gym Thursday, and then I do a challenge thing on Friday, rest Saturday, and then swim Sunday. So it's a decent week we've got going on. I love swimming, yeah. So I'm up to the uni pool on a Wednesday, Sunday to go swimming, because the uni has like Olympic sized. I don't know if it was one of the Olympic legacy pools. It might have been like in the wake of the Olympics while that was going on. They built like quite a few Olympic sized swimming pools around the UK. One of them was at Bath Uni, so so that's been good. So that's what's going on here. Other than that, just pumping out absurd amounts of content, pretty much. Yeah, so by the time I get back to an actual event, I'm going to have the sleeveless jersey. I want to get one of these TacticalRab t-shirts in. I want to see if Teespring do a sleeveless one. I don't know about that. I could just cut them off, yeah, but I don't know. We shall see, I suppose. Let's dive into things first. Yeah, well, honestly. That's inspiration, man. Inspiration to many. He's also been frying on the timeline lately, so you gotta tip it. Someone else who has been frying, of course, is Crim6. He likes to have a go at anyone he can do. Very entertaining guy. He got confirmed onto a team. New York Subliners, they confirmed their roster. We've got Clayster, of course, he's going to stay there. We've got HyDra there from last year as well. Then we're bringing in Neptune, that got confirmed on the 21st. And then Crim6 got confirmed the next day. So that's the team of 4. I think this is actually quite a divisive team in terms of where people think it's going to end up, because there's certainly some risks to this team, Austin. It's not all clean sailing. Like, the SMG duo is nasty on paper, but is communication going to be an issue with HyDra? That was a discussion we certainly had last year. Crim and Clayster, we know what they can do. We know what I think probably they will continue to do here, but they are, of course, towards the latter end of their careers. Can they have another phenomenal year in terms of slaying? That remains to be seen. And then you've got Crim6 as well on this flex, which is by no means guaranteed success if it is going to be a 3 SMG meta. So I genuinely have really high hopes for this team. I think that Crim and Clay are going to get some incredible performance levels out of HyDra and Neptune, and that is key on your SMGs. And as long as those guys hold their own, then I think this is a genuine championship contender. I don't know if that happens right at the start of the year, but someone DM'd me the other day saying, like, who do you think is going to win champs in 2022? And I'm like, it's a bit early to say, but I just said, kind of a hot take would be New York, because even looking this far out, you could imagine a world in which they're very competitive maybe right at the start of the year, but certainly at the end, I would say. So I don't know. Interesting one, Austin.
Yeah, so I think they're So weirdly, I think the team with like the highest potential, but always the lowest floor, because like I think like us, Toronto, and I'll say Dallas, I guess, that like are like the top three, and then pretty much like any other team could be breaking into that depending on like how like the early season goes. I mean, obviously, like a red flag is communication. You heard some of like what came out about Neptune on Florida, but I think that was more of like a team wide thing, and then you've had the red flags with like HyDra and Neptune now being kind of on the quieter side. But I also think having Clay and Crim will pull that out of them, like pull out the vocalness. So they could definitely be a top three team, but they also could have a low floor. It just depends on how it goes. I mean, obviously, they're probably hoping for more of an AR heavy meta. I think the more SMGs are on the map, I think there's a lot of other teams that would be favored in that. Like obviously our team with an SMG, Toronto. I love Cammy on the SMG. The Dallas team, obviously that would be a question mark on who's running the SMG there. But I think this team would definitely prefer the 2-3 AR setup compared to anything more than two SMGs.
With this New York team, I've found like Clayster since Black Ops 4, every year his team has completely exceeded my expectations. Like in BO4, I didn't expect Reunite to come out, get second at Vegas. And then they came into Modern Warfare, he was on Dallas, completely dominated most of that year. And then last year in New York, I had very like low hopes for them. And they came out and were a top 4 team like most of the year. So I
Making up
really
one of
have
the
no
majors.
expectations. Yeah, I've got no expectations for New York because honestly, they could be really good or really bad. And I don't really want to go my take on that.
I just can't see this team being bad. I can't see a team with Clay and Crim and this much talent being worse than top six to me. Like they're obviously there's a lot of great teams in here. But I don't know, I don't think their floor is particularly low, to be honest. Like there's so much talent here. They should and I don't know, I think Crim and Clay are going to get a lot out of these guys because we saw what HyDra did last year with not even Clayster's perfect leadership setup, you could say. Like I think Crim and Clay complement each other's leadership styles really well. And the Neptune question is possibly one of the most exciting things in the league because, of course, like if you look in terms of rookie of the year, of course, Insight, Insight won it, or he didn't, I don't know if they ever actually gave it out officially, but Insight was definitely number one. Then Standy and HyDra was up there as well, alongside Clayster, of course. But then you've got Neptune, who I think improved. Like at the start of the season, he was nothing crazy. Like people were even, when he was on the early, I don't know he was with like Parasite and I don't know who it was, like Parasite FeLo or something in Challenges right at the start of the year. And there was a bit of I don't know. Like he was obviously talented, but people maybe didn't want to give too much of a chance to him. Florida give him a go, and he starts off the season not exactly great, but kind of as expected for a guy just transitioning from Halo. And pretty much every single stage towards the end of the year, he got better and better. And that was on a team that he said himself really didn't have much leadership or great communication. Like Neptune seems to be, from what I've heard him speak about, like a really mature individual. I think he I mean, obviously, and pair that with the ridiculous skill ceiling which he has shown with Clayster and Crimson, I just think we're going to see like some ridiculous levels out of Neptune this year. And I don't know, like people were kind of making the comparison last year with Shotzi. And I don't know, I want to see it, right? Because, of course, Clay and Crim, they don't have Shotzi anymore. They don't have Hook, they don't have Illy, as they did in Modern Warfare. They've got Neptune and HyDra. And I think that if anything, they can be equally as impactful. So I don't know. I do have high hopes. I'd be disappointed if they suck. It's not saying it's completely out of the possibility because you never really know. But I don't know. I'm confident, Austin.
Yeah, and for people in the chat, like I'm not talking about like speaking because HyDra is actually a really good speaker for like English. It's the actually I think him and Neptune actually have like maybe the opposite problem. Like I think the thing with HyDra is going to be learning like hearing something like in English and making a snap decision that's correct with his team, which the team themselves have said last year. Like sometimes there was a lot of slip ups, and like that's really critical on a tight game. Like if you make a team call and the team is on the same page at that same moment, I mean that's when like the best teams are made. So that like I do believe like that is a like teachable, that is learnable, and like he has the two best mentors you could probably ask for that. And then going with Neptune, like like when people say communication, they always think it's just speaking, but a lot of times it's listening as well. But that Florida team, like they said they were all quiet, so maybe like as long as he's listening and doing the right things around the map, like he's not gonna have to be the most vocal person on the team. As long as Crim and Clay are kind of guiding the traffic. But listening to Clay last night, he was kind of saying like he wants like the guy leading the way to be speaking a lot on the flank. He was saying that, so it'll be interesting how they develop like their speaking communication style and how that develops going throughout the season.
Yeah, in my opinion, I'm just I'm excited to see how Neptune and HyDra work together as an SMG duo. Because last year, HyDra had such a good duo, and Asim, one of the best players at like being cohesive with his SMG duo. And I wonder if Neptune has that same ability to come in and be cohesive with HyDra in that same way. Because HyDra's only experiences with Asim, Asim's gone. And can Neptune step in and play a similar role, or will they both be fighting for kills? I'm not sure yet.
It's a good question. I think like Crim is going to have to do a lot of that like gap filling for this roster. Like I think he'd be very happy to drop a point 0.9 if HyDra and Neptune are frying, right? So I think that is a big question, right? And the other point that I kind of wanted to make on this that I didn't actually have written down, but I thought it would be interesting because there was some talk on Scump stream a few days ago of like what is a Call of Duty pro player's prime? Like what are their prime years where they're at their best? But of course another question from that is like what is their theoretical age cap, right? Because I don't think there's any doubt that probably Crim and Clay are past their primes, but whether they're anywhere near their cap in like terms of where they could compete is another question. Scump reckoned that like your best years for being the best player you're going to be is something like 18 to 22 in that range. Methodz reckoned it was more like 20 to 26, and esports and Call of Duty esports is so young that you can't really tell. I guess Methodz is speaking maybe from an AR player's perspective, and Scump might be speaking from an SMG player's perspective, which might kind of show the differences there. But still, I think it's a really interesting question. Like the prime it depends, right? Because your maybe raw skill ceiling might be highest when you're, I guess, younger. But then again, like I don't really know if there's any concrete studies that are well backed that suggest that your reaction time significantly falls off after the age of like 25, 26 or whatever. I think there was some study I saw someone say with like some StarCraft players, but I don't know if that's been necessarily empirically backed up on multiple occasions. And of course, we know like sports players in other sports like football, American football, tennis, for example, can easily compete into their mid-30s and actually even get better in those years because maybe they're more experienced or just questions like this. So I think it was a bit of it's a tough one to give an answer to, but I guess the long or the short of it is like, are Crim and Clay kind of reaching? Is this like the swan song, type of their career? Can they compete for too many more years after this?
You
Okay,
want me
to
to
you,
go?
Austin.
Yeah,
Oh,
you can
he's
go.
on me.
Line.
I just wanted to touch on the prime thing. I think it's impossible to know like when a player's prime is, especially in an esport or sport that is constantly growing. So Scump picked 18 to 22 as his prime because that was him from Black Ops. Oh no, not Black Ops 2, but Ghost
Well,
to
pretty
IW.
much
He
though.
was 18 to
Yeah.
22. And it's like, of course,
Hmm.
he's going to pick that as his prime because he was dominating most of that era. But then if he had dominated in his late 20s, maybe that's prime. So I think that looking at a prime of a COD player is pretty hard to judge because Clay seemed to have a dry patch from like 25 to 28, and then he came out and was like blowing people away in Cold War, and it made no sense.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
it's like it depends on the game, depends on your team and your situation, as opposed to your actual reaction time, or because your IQ goes up with years you play, and yeah. So I think the prime study is stupid because you look at Michael Jordan, for example, in his final year in '98 for the Bulls, it was like considered one of his best years, but he was
Yeah.
36.
He didn't really start really winning championships until what, 28, 29?
Yeah, 28, 29.
Like I think
Yeah.
Call of Duty is entering like a new phase. I mean, again, they talked about this on the flank last night, but like in the early days of Call of Duty, it was a lot of just individual plays, individual like talent. So like when you're in that kind of environment, like yes, like your prime is going to be shorter because it's less team based. But nowadays, it's a lot more team based. It's a lot more preparation. It's Teams are trying to get maximized amount of potential out of the practice slots they have. Like teams only practicing like 5-6 hours a day, but you're getting so much out of that 5-6 hours that it's comparable to practicing like 13 hours in the past. So I think nowadays it's a lot less draining on the hands, on the wrists, and it's a lot less time. So as long as realistically, I think I've read a study that they said like 27 is when your your reaction time slowly starts dropping, and then by the time you're in the late 30s, it like drops off a cliff. But uh, the majority of like primes in Call of Duty will be dependent on like your effort level that you're putting in. So like if you're putting in a lot of effort and when you're 27, 28 and you're maximizing your practice time, you're still have a high passion for the game, like that could easily be your prime. So like um primes are gonna be different for everybody, and it's also gonna be different for roles too. If you're the IGL, if you're the entry SMG, your prime is probably gonna be shorter because the second you stop having that passion and that drive to be really good at the game, your performance is gonna suffer because like being an IGL, being an entry SMG, you need to put a lot of hours in to learn routes to be able to guide people, and if you're not putting in the work to be elite at those intangibles, then you're not going to be at the top of your game. So people might think you dropped off. So it isn't more physically like you're not gonna. I don't think physicality is gonna be the deciding factor in a person's prime for Call of Duty. But I do think like mentality, like drive for the game, passion, that's gonna be the deciding factor. So that's why you still see Scump and Crim and Play and even Attach. Like Attach was on like Cursed Youth and like Black Ops 2, Ghost. So like he's been in the league for a minute. So you're gonna start seeing these players investing a lot of their money, like same way athletes do, into being the best physically, so they're not burnt out playing the game, so they're the best mentally, and they're in the best team environment, and they have the staff around them to get the maximum amount of potential out of their practices, so they're not burning themselves out.
Yeah, I think that's really well summed up because on one hand, you've got kind of like the passion argument that like, oh yeah, the kids that are 18 or whatever, they're putting in like all the time, grinding like 12 hours a day on COD, which is kind of okay, yeah, they've got the passion, but nowadays, as you say, the way that Call of Duty is evolving to actually being more about being effective with the time you do use practicing as opposed to just playing a ridiculous amount of hours, that's actually what means that maybe some of the older guys that have other commitments. I'm reading a book at the moment. It's I think it's Sir Alex Ferguson's latest book called Leading, and he was talking about that like a lot of the young football players, soccer players for those in the US who come onto the scene, like the only thing they have in their lives, they have a few mates, maybe they got a girlfriend, and then it's just football. That's it. That's completely consumes their entire existence when they're like late teens, 18 or whatever. Fast forward 10 years, they've got a kid, they've got a house, they've got all these like commitments, and they might be a much more experienced and even valuable player, but there's obviously other things going on. So you need to be able to design a practice regime that actually supports those players by being, as you say, effective with the time you're using rather than just playing a load of hours, and that's what determines how good you are. And I think it's an optimistic way that you put that, right? The fact that teams are evolving in terms of how they do take their practice, which actually can benefit some of these older players. So that is pretty good
I
to
mean,
hear.
one quick thing too is like at the end of Modern Warfare, hopefully they don't get angry about this, but at the end of the Modern Warfare season, Dallas was actually practicing a lot less, like because they realize that if you're burning out, you're not enjoying playing the game, and you can snap at your teammates, and like it creates a bad work environment and bad for your chemistry. So they were practicing less and getting more out of that practice and not burning out. And in the end, that rewarded them because they have those veteran players. They didn't want to burn them out towards the end of the season, so they were taking less time in the practice area because they knew it would be better for them as a unit. So the more teams that are able to customize their schedules, work together, like I saw Attach, like ices his hands, like the more that people are taking that into account, like the longer your lifespan in this game is going to be. That's what everyone wants. So, it's definitely taking steps into the right direction. So, yeah, we'll have longer peaks basically. I think in the future, you're gonna have a lot longer like lifespans of the best players.
Yeah, that's good to hear as well, just because I think there's been some concern about the turnover of players in the league. And of course, there is significant turnover, and there always will be for the players on kind of like the lower tier squads. But for the big name players, I think it's been a concern, like, what happens when these, Scump, Crimsix, Clayster, these guys retire and move on. Of course, we've seen it with Formal, we've seen it with Karma, and that will continue to happen over the coming years. Thankfully, we still do have fantastic personalities in the scene, but of course, we want to get as much lifespan out of these guys as possible in the scene, as long as they're committed and willing to do so. The last thing I wanted to have on this New York stuff was that Crim said last night on the flank about for him it was kind of the decision, or he was kind of contemplating between going to what would have been LAG, which like I think there was even some talk about could he. So we heard, I think from Kenny last week, that there was a potential roster of Slasher, Crimsix, Kenny, and Envoy that could have happened, but Envoy basically didn't want to go there and wanted to go to Thieves, and Kenny was never going to say yes to that anyway. And but then there was the other possibility that Hoot got bought up by LOG, Slasher was still a consideration, and Crimsix effectively was going to go wherever Neptune went. So he just wanted a team that had two solid SMGs, like two fantastic SMGs. And if that happened to be Los Angeles Guerrillas, he'd have probably gone with that, even though it could have been kind of awkward if he had to team up with Hook again, to be honest. But that was kind of what he was implying, that there was a roster there that could have happened. I imagine it fell through quite quickly because he ended up getting it figured out that Neptune was going to come to New York, and he was happy with the squad that they formed there, of course, that we've discussed. But Crimsix, Slasher, Hook, and Neptune, that would have been an interesting one. Like, I don't know if we really discussed this previously, because, of course, Kennedy did talk about it, but could Crimsix and Slasher work on a team? We've heard them talk about it a fair bit lately, the fact that they thought about team and they almost did team. Slasher reckons their styles would actually mesh quite well. Of course, again, it relies a lot on Crimsix being a very solid flex, third SMG, gap filler type player. But again, maybe they could find similar chemistry there as Clayster and Crimsix have. Whether they could get the same out of Hook and Neptune as Clayster and co could, then I don't really know about that, right? Because Slasher and Hook in the past haven't had the greatest success. It's interesting nonetheless. It would have been kind of crazy to think about if that one went through Austin, Crim, Slasher, Hook, and Neptune. I don't really know what I think about that one.
Yeah, I don't know which team would perform more. Like I almost like the LG team sounds really really good too. I really think I like Crim in the flex role. If you think back to the Dynasty and him in complexity, he was a really good flex. Like that's what he was really good at. So I actually have a lot of faith for him in that role. So and I also love his mindset where he said he wanted to be with two SMG players who are cracked out, because like he realizes that it's not a one-man show. He needs the talent around him, and he realizes that the SMGs are one of the most like they put the most I don't know how to say this, like that's where like the star power is, and a lot of times like the make or break is when your SMGs, and if they're performing really well in crunch time. So like he knows that like that's part of the way to win. So he was just he was really thinking out this offseason, which is just I just really respect the mindset. So yeah, he played it really smart by figuring out who he won the team with, who his personality and work ethic would work best with, and having a good team around him that suits him. So he did a really, really good job with this offseason of building out a team for himself.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm just going to touch on the Slasher Crim thing. I think if we go like 4 years ago, they wouldn't work. But I think now, because they've matured and they haven't, well, Crim hasn't really won since Modern Warfare, but Slasher hasn't been on a winning team since BO4. And I feel like that time period, like their drive would have grown immensely, not being on a top team, being used to that. And I think they'll be able to work together. I'm not sure how long it would last, but I think in the short term, they could work well together, just because I guess they've been somewhat humbled.
I think that's a good take, actually, especially the way, like the time question is kind of similar, really, with how Slasher and Gunless have, well, come together this season on LOG again after the difficulties they had during Rise and stuff in the past. So I think, I guess it's a maturity thing, and I don't know if we'll ever see that. Probably not, but I do, all these crazy stories. I'm sure the Copros have teams that could have formed and stuff that we kind of get to hear about. But this is actually the final thing I want to talk about on the New York team. Was there was kind of I think it was maybe a couple of flank episodes ago, there was some talk about teammates and how they behave if the team is in a difficult spot behind each other's backs. So let's say the general manager comes in, they're speaking to player 1, player 2, player 3, player 4, and asking the players, okay, what do you think's wrong with the team? What do you think we should do? And in those sort of settings, the players are supposedly, and maybe understandably, very willing to throw each other under the bus if it means they're going to keep their spot. Now, the question that has been raised about New York in regards to this is that they decided to bring back Riven as their coach. And there was some criticism of Riven last year, especially when the whole Clayster stuff was going down. And Clay even touched it himself on the flank episode, I'm pretty sure, yesterday, saying that Clay did take a very strong role in terms of leading the team, not just in terms of in the game itself, but also the entire culture of the organization, effectively. And Revan was more passive in that sense. And Ben J. Nassim said a similar thing, that Revan's a pretty passive coach. Now, they could have, I guess, got Looney maybe instead of letting him go to the Rocker, but maybe they paid him a lot of money. I don't really know. Or maybe he just decided to go there. Regardless of the situation, they bring back Riven. And so that's kind of another question that has been raised with this Crim and Clay duo is like, can they, if things go sour for them, is it basically just those two that run the entire show at that team, right? Because you've got a coach, you've got like other staff there, but with Crim and Clay on your team, they're probably going to run the entire show. And if things start to go sour between them, then there might not be anyone part of the organization that can set things right with like a team talk type discussion. So I think Riven certainly has the respect of the players, but I'm not sure I don't think he's the perfect man when things start to go wrong, is what I would say, Austin.
So Revan is like really, really good at the X's and O's, but I think he might be kind of like how like Jacob is, where like sometimes he doesn't have like the strongest voice. Like I feel like Clay had the stronger voice, so that's kind of like what he was saying on the flank. I still think Revan is an amazing head coach, so like he's really good at the X's and O's. He'll be great on that front. I think the rumor is with D-Real going there, which I love him as a coach. I think he's gonna be really good. So I think this year they're probably maybe have a different approach where they kind of have Clay and Crim like lead the pack, and then like those guys do a lot of like the analytical preparation work for them, and try to like be more assistive that way. I just feel like last year, like the way that Clay puts it is like they're like coaching, like the coaching style with like Clay's coaching style was just like butting heads with each other, and it was ineffective for the team, and it just didn't work. So I feel like they just got to get on the same page this year and find out a system that works for themselves, and they'll be fine. Like having JP, having Revan, having D-Real if he does sign there is an amazing trio. So they're definitely going to have a lot of support behind them, and they just have to make it work, especially when you have two guys like Clay and Crim who know what they're talking about, been through it all, and just have a lot of veteran leadership there.
Yeah, Clay and Crim could also be like essentially two more assistant coaches in a way. Like they're so experienced and they're really good players and they've been through every situation possible. Like
I feel like they're
coaching
gonna be like the
wise,
head coaches, honestly. I feel like those two are
yeah.
gonna be like the main voice, and then everyone
Just
else is
like,
just kind of like,
have you seen LeBron on the Lakers just like walking up and down the floor
yeah,
like with the coaches and stuff? Like, yeah, they're gonna be that. So if things
man.
start to go wrong, I think they should be able to sort it. But hey, who knows? They might self-destruct.
I feel like with
You
Clay and
never rule
Crim,
it
like the
out.
way, yeah, like when they were talking about it last year, like Clay and Crim were like leading the conversation with Dallas back in Modern Warfare a lot, and Ray would just input and just kind of keep things on track and like keep them guiding in the right direction, and they were able to work it out themselves. I feel like those two know the system they want with their coaching staffs, and if they just get on the same page of Bobble, JP, real, then everything's gonna be working really cohesively, and they're gonna be like really, really prepared and getting the most out of the two young guys that they have.
Agreed. So that's one roster done. Two other roster rumors came out this past week. One from the Washington Demon Cats or something or other. Paris Legion, we actually do know their organization name. So let's talk about Washington first. We've heard for a while now that it was probably going to be Methodz Vivid +2. The rumor coming out from Crone is that it's Methodz Vivid, PaulEhx, and TJ Halley. And I did, like, someone commented on one of my videos yesterday. I think it was Mike or something, and he said something like, TJ's a roach. You just can't kill the guy. Like, he just keeps coming back for more, despite having a difficult couple of seasons. But totally understandable, I think, why he's still got a spot here. But definitely some questions will be raised. I don't think it's a massive surprise given Methodz and TJ's friendship and kind of the caliber of players still available on the market at this point for Washington coming into play. But I think all things considered, if this is their roster, they've done a pretty good job just in relation to where they sit, right, as an org, because they come in here, they've got to figure out, okay, who's their GM going to be, who's their coach going to be, and try and build a team that's going to be competitive in the league when all the big name players have already been signed. So to me, Vivid is an absolute no-brainer. I think you sign him, well, obviously probably costs a fair bit of money, but, like, you sign him as quick as you can. And even there was a tweet that came out from Vivid saying he was an unrestricted free agent. So I wonder whether the whole OpTic Dallas merger type stuff has played havoc with those contracts to the point where his contract might have just been voided or something because he's no longer, I don't know if that would even be the case, but it's a theory. Methodz there as the many are, I think, makes perfect sense, not just in terms of being a solid player, but also what he's done on Twitch and the branding associated. Like, I think if you are coming into the league and you want to build a name for yourself, a guy like Methodz is the perfect guy to have. And then you round out your team with PaulEhx, who was very solid on London for a time last year. And then TJ, who's like obviously going to be a serviceable SMG alongside Vivid, but probably nothing spectacular, right? So it's not bad, it's not great, it's going to be bottom half, but what do you think, Austin?
I like some of the pieces. Like, obviously in their main AR, I feel like the only two that should have been in that conversation are probably Gravity and Methodz, and maybe there's like some other guys like Hamza that you could throw in there as well. But I feel like those are your two major options. And like Zinni, I honestly don't hate him. I feel like he did a pretty good job in with Toronto. He was kind of like undervalued there after, because obviously you saw how much Insight did. It was just like, wow, Zinni didn't do that much, but I still feel like he did a really good job. I like Paul. I like Vivid. I feel like both of those guys are great. The only question mark I really have is TJ. Going back pretty much like 3 years now, like ever since the Las Vegas win they had, he's kind of just been okay. Like he's had a ton of flashy moments, right? Where like you had the Moscow map where you went 12-0 this year, but it's just consistency. It's this consistency that is just really missing. It's just this hasn't been there. So it's like it's just really tough because if you don't know what you're getting out of your main SMG, because like if Vivid's gonna be the entryman, like TJ is gonna have to slay and like or be the support guy, like one of the two. And I don't know. I kind of would have liked a Venom here. I feel like Venom would have fit really, really well there, especially with Paul. Like if you went Gravity, Venom, PaulEhx, like that's 3/4 of the Westar team. Like I feel like the chemistry is already there, but I don't know. Like I feel like they're gonna have their own issues going on throughout the year. It's just how they react, how they grow as a team. Um, so they could definitely break into the top 8. It's just how they work as a unit, and hopefully they take their sub spot like really seriously and get. I mean, when you look at that unit, you probably guess their SMGs are going to be either SMG or flex player. I would try to snag as their substitute. So hopefully they do take that role very, very serious.
Gotta get a sub.
Yeah. I
Mhm.
understand the Tej pick because I feel like in COD, recency bias is a big thing. But when it comes down to teams trying to find a fourth or like finish out their roster, your history and the championships you've got way back in the past actually count for quite a lot. And so that's why I think the Teach pick, although it is somewhat risky, could benefit them if he's having a really good year because we know that his ceiling can be super high.
Yeah, no,
But
I don't hate him. I don't hate the
I
pickup.
agree, yeah.
It's just when you're a new team coming in this late into the roster mania, like I don't know. I would have rather gone youth as a team because you're trying to build for the future, but it seems like they're trying to sneak into the top 8 with this roster, I
Yeah,
guess like
it's
that's their
risk
objective.
management.
Yeah. So that's why I don't hate the Teach pickup. It's just you got to be able to pull out that consistency for him. And I guess that's
Yeah.
going to be down to the team leadership and their coaching staff and what they have. So he could be one of the most improved players of the season. We don't.
It also
Yeah.
looks good for investors and fans and like popularity. So yeah, they went safe.
This is seriously
And
do or die though. Like this is This has got to be last chance to leave for TJ, you would think, just after the last couple of years and going down to challenges and not doing all that much. I wonder if this does go through, like how much that decision was based on like what Methodz thinks, because
Probably
I
quite high.
think, yeah, I think so, because Methodz had one of his best years, well, probably his best year during World War II. Yeah, certainly his best year during World War II. Like winning the event on Atlanta, being I think it was the MVP for that event, or I don't know, he had some crazy stats anyway. And doing that with TJ on the team at the time, and knowing how good TJ was in that game as well, probably is making him think and maybe the team think that the kind of World War II vibes of Vanguard are going to help in that way. Now, that thought process so far has not really worked out. Going into Cold War, for example, oh, it's 4 versus 4 boots on the ground. Let's put back together the EG squad from World War II. That didn't really work. So whether this works, I don't know. I think that like it's a solid decision, and the reason why like I kind of can get behind it is the fact that at least you've got other pieces that are going to potentially be building for the future, right? Like at least you've got Vivid there, like who has many years ahead of him. I'm sure in this league you've got PaulEhx there, who could be a similar guy. And I think your idea, Austin, about like having Gravity, Venom, Vivid, PaulEhx was a team that was talked about a fair bit actually during the off season as a potential squad of four.
Yeah.
Could also have worked very nicely here. So there's that option, but I think I feel bad for Gravity, right? Like another year he's not gonna get an AR spot, but it's just like what can he do at this point, right? You can't blame Washington for going down this route of picking up someone with more of a brand, right? Especially when they want to build something. Just before I throw it back to you guys real quick, there was also some talk from Parasite because Chrome was throwing out the leaks and Parasite came in the replies. He was dropping some hints and Chrome was like, he's got something in the works and he did some gif with like Patrick, rubbing his hands together, whatever. So seems like Hagi might have something in the works. I was kind of theorizing, could he be the coach for this team? Would that make sense? Given Parasite's history, the last couple of years being a phenomenal scout of talent, but he also definitely still has a competitive nature to him. So I don't think he would want to find a role where he's not at least involved in trying to win. I don't know. I think that Parasite, if he does decide to be done with playing, could be absolutely fantastic in a role like that, not just as a scout, but also imparting some of his experience onto some of these younger guys. So I don't know. That's just something I thought could be a possibility. But I think if they can pull that off, right, and pull off this team, plus maybe Hagi as coach and whoever they get as a GM, they've done, I think, pretty damn well considering how late they came into rostermania, Austin.
Yeah, I think Hagi said like he doesn't want to coach yet. He wants to
Well,
compete.
that's what I thought, but
Yeah, so that's what I mean. Maybe he just didn't get any team
maybe they
offers
offered
this
him
year.
some cash.
Yeah, and he's waiting for expansion to get another shot at playing. But as we've learned throughout the years, like obviously if you stop playing, it usually tends to be like your careers. You're more in like that coaching role after that. So, um, I hope he's not done playing because I do like him as a player. But if he is a coach, like obviously it's a good pickup for them. If they pick up with some other pieces around him too, like I feel like they would be a really good unit. So hopefully they do get a good coach or two in that and for that team there to get the most out of them.
Yeah, I can't really imagine Hagi as a coach. I know he's got the knowledge, but it would be quite tumultuous, wouldn't
It
it?
would be quite. It would be
Yeah.
quite a learning process, I think.
Yeah, if things started to go wrong, I could just hear his voice getting higher and higher pitched, but we'll have to see. Maybe they should stream some scrims.
Let's see, that's why I would like him with a younger team because like I feel like after watching him for so long, it's more of this like he has this really good like how he sees the game is how he wants to play it, and like he pushes that. Like that's how he wants to play Call of Duty. So if it's like I don't want to say older, but if it's a team like this where it's Zinni, it's TJ, like if you're gonna be pushing your opinion like really hard, I don't know how that's gonna go down. But if it's a younger team, that younger players are gonna be more receptive. They want to learn from you. They're like more hungry to improve. So, I don't know. Like I do want to see him coaching eventually because I do think he's very very knowledgeable about the game. But I feel like being an assistant coach first and like going through your ups and downs and learning as a unit, like I feel like that's gonna be really valuable to him in the future.
Yeah, I think like the risk is with Hagi as a coach is that it would be too difficult for him to stop himself from correcting all the mistakes that were like being made in terms of how they're playing the game. Like, I kind of agree that he would kind of want to micromanage the way. Well, no, that's just how it seems to me. Like, he'd want to micromanage how the team's playing to make sure like it's kind of his style. And I don't know if Call of Duty works like that, kind of like how regular sports work like that, where you've got a squad of 15 players or whatever, and it's the kind of manager that decides, okay, what are the tactics, what's the setup, what's the formation, and doesn't really work like that in COD yet. So I guess if Parasite does go down the coaching route, which I think he can be fantastic at some point, maybe it's not this year, maybe it's with another team, there probably will be a learning process there because, yes, it's about correcting mistakes and giving pointers, but it's also about managing the emotions and stuff on the team as well, which the coaching staff at FaZe, for example, is so good at, Austin.
Yeah. So I mean, hopefully he does land on a team, whether because I mean I just don't know how many more years he wants to be grinding in the challenger scene. It's really tough mentally and a lot physically because you play a lot of weekends. So you know, if he does get a really good coaching opportunity, I do hope we see him in that role eventually.
Yeah, so of course that's the thing, right? Could he be going to another organization? Because the other rumor that came up was regarding Paris, and maybe he could be going there, Parasite, right? So like, that's been the kind of people were talking about that in the chat. That was discussed, I'm pretty sure, last year as well, before the season was beginning. But so the leaked roster over there, I think, is more. It's certainly more controversial. And so let's just go from the top down. We've got FeLo, apparently, who was just officially released by the Dallas Empire as of recording this podcast live on Twitch. So it seems like yeah, relatively likely. We've got Temp also there as, I'm guessing, the flex. Then Decimate and John, I suppose, on the SMGs. It's I mean, it's just one of those teams. It's just a classic Paris Legion team. So, okay, John, Decimate, Temp, and FeLo apparently is the team of four. This just, it just says all the same stuff as last season, right? And I was kind of roasting this in the video I discussed it because it's just frustrating that I don't mind. Like, these are solid players. They're going to be okay. They're going to win some series against some decent teams. But there's nothing spectacular in this squad. There's no incredible existing chemistry in this squad. It seems to me. Like, I don't know how much experience some of these guys have playing together, but I can't imagine it's all that much. And then you've got to think like, yeah, is the firepower where exactly it needs to be? And even if that is the case, there's no young talent on this roster that you can build around for the future. You're relying on this team to be good. And last year they did the same thing where they put together four players that had very little existing chemistry, that were just big names that they could get on the minimum, which were available on the market after all the other teams had paid other players more money, and picked those guys up, and they didn't really have any chemistry. Like, it obviously didn't work out, and they like didn't place top 8 for the entire season. I think they were just top 10, top 12. Maybe they got one top 8, I don't know, but it wasn't pretty at the majors. And this seems like a team that might just follow a similar trajectory, right? And it's just like, I get what they're trying to do, but it's just super frustrating that you don't have someone on this team to try and build around. There's so many young, talented players out there that even a guy like Saints, for example, or like even the entirety of that team that won the North American Challenges, like some of those guys would be great pickups here. At least one of them, right? So at least you have someone that, like, yeah, if they play well and do particularly good, at least you can sell them onto another organization and make a bit of profit, kind of like what we imagine Mutineers have done with Neptune, right? At least try and go the Florida Mutineers route if you want to be kind of stingy, because they've actually built some solid teams, and if they've cultivated star players, they can sell them on. Whereas you're not achieving that here with this Paris roster. So, like, it hasn't been confirmed yet, so I don't know. I guess that's just my rant on it. Like, Lion, I don't know if you have any thoughts on
Yeah.
this.
It just seems like a bit of a ragtag group that got brought together all on minimum contracts. I think the real question is, would it be better to sit out or put yourself through the season on Paris Legion? Who knows?
Well,
Probably sit out, right?
I mean, Dece did like not play for Seattle last year because he was worried about a stock, and then
Yeah.
I mean, I
Hasn't risen
I
much,
don't
has
know.
it? He's
I
on
mean, it's a pro
Paris.
league spot. It's a pro league spot. You don't know what could happen. You could be the sole person that shines on it. So like, it's a risk, but I mean, obviously these guys think it's a risk worth taking.
Yeah. 50 grand.
Yeah. I mean, oh, I feel like we talked about this like a month ago, where we said like I don't know who PaulEhx's GM is. I don't know who's building this roster. We said like, hey, like either like pick a path. Like, do you want to be a contender or do you want to build for the future, right? And like, don't make a ragtag jumble of players. Just pick one. Whether you want to contend and try to get some good players, or whether you want to build for the future and get some amateurs. Like, I really, really, really would have loved like a Harry, Vortex, Dave. Like, there's so many like young European players that you could have snagged and just took a risk on there. I I don't know. I feel like this is like the exact replica of like last year where you kind of are just jumbling pros who have worked in the past and just hoping it clicks. I really like Temp on a flex as an AR. I really like Dece and S&D. I like FeLo's leadership and what he brings to the table. John. I mean, I'm not gonna. I'm really not high on John. I haven't, but like I can see he had some moments like 4 or 5 years ago where and before that, obviously
He had
for
a
like
good ace
4 years.
this year on raid. He had a really sick ace.
Yeah, I guess.
There was that.
But like I feel like you could have had two of those guys, like two of them, whether it's FeLo, Dece, or Temp, and then took two risks, or you could have just gone with a full European roster and actually embraced Paris and like tried building out that way, or you could have built out the young team. Like you could have done like picked up like the New York Academy. You could have picked up the old West Star like majority of their team. I don't know. I like that's the toughest thing about being a GM is like every decision you make is going to be scrutinized. So, if it works, like if they're like, because like last year they were a pretty decent respawn team, right? Like they had some moments in hardpoint. So if they're a good respawn team and they're making series close, like you guys remember like Toronto and Modern Warfare, like they weren't winning a lot of series, but every series was close at the beginning of the year. Then I feel like that's okay. But I feel like you're going to enter next off season again and squad wipe, or if you don't do well, it's squad wipe. If you do well, obviously you're going to keep them. But I feel like you're going to enter into the next offseason again, not knowing where your future is, like where you're going to build to. So I do wish the best for these guys because individually, again, I like them. Like I would have liked them as the veteran players and then took some risks on the youth side. But I do hope it works out, but it's just such a tall task when you see the teams that have been assembled this year. Like see the teams are still there. I mean, you have Toronto, you have the Dallas team, you have LA Thieves, you have LA Gorillas, you have New York, you have London, who actually have a very good team. Obviously, you have our team that's still there. You have Minnesota, who won a tournament last year and is still together as a unit. You have Seattle, which I like. I like a lot actually as a unit. What else? I mean, you have Washington, who I think is better built together than this team. So it's like you have such a tall task ahead of you. So, uh, you know, who knows?
You're
They could
fighting for
be a
top
really
10.
it's a really uphill battle, and I feel bad because individually, again, I like all these guys, and I don't want them to. I don't want them to be upset with losing. I don't want them to be in a very stressed out environment again this year. So, you know, some of these guys, as you were saying, Lion, I don't know if I would have taken like. It's so hard to put yourself in these guys' shoes, but I mean, obviously, like let's say it expands next year to 16, right? Would you have rather have been an amateur this season, killing it, or on the last like on a team that doesn't let you showcase your best abilities in the pro league? Like that's obviously going to be a discussion, and these guys obviously want to take that risk together as a unit. So hopefully it does pay out. Like I want these guys in the league in the future. Individually I like a lot of these guys, so I do hope they're in the league and in the future and keep doing well because I do think like individually they have a lot of great pieces. Again, like FeLo is a great AR. He has great leadership. He has great comms. The Temp was one of the best players in Black Ops 4. Like he shows that he still has it. He just has to be on a team around him that works. And all of them have their bright spots. So hopefully they do somewhat well and they can maintain their spot in the league next year and do well this year.
Yeah, I think their problem lies with their incapability to spend heaps of money on their players. Because if there's paying every player minimum, what happens when they bring in players and then they have their 2-year contract and they can't retain them because everyone else is willing to bid higher for them? Like they can't even build talent because they're not willing to
I
put in the
mean,
money to
it's
keep
a
those
team
players.
option. It's a team option, not a player option. So
Oh, right.
if you sign a
If they
contract,
sign
like
them under
it's
1+1.
Yeah,
yeah,
but if
Well, I
it's
don't know
2
how
years,
that's all
fair.
there is. No, it's just it's all 1+1s. So it's a
Mhm.
team option in the second year. So if you sign a young player and they're good, boom, you have them for 2 years. So like that's why I don't really understand why you're not going that route. You know, you're not trying to push for that. I don't know.
yeah, but do you
Like
think after
like
those 2 years they'll be able to retain them anyway
in
without
2 years, I don't
putting
know where
anyone
Call of
in?
Duty is gonna be. So like you could
Yeah,
easily
I guess it
retain
doesn't
them and
matter.
have 2 good years. I mean, like right now, like think about it. You could have gotten Harry, you could have gotten Vortex. I mean, Hixie, if you offered him a starting spot over the sub spot for Toronto, I mean, he's probably not gonna. Who know? He might play for Toronto, but he could have a starting spot. And then you could have added in like Wee Man, Dave, Ids. You could have had a really, really solid third EU team, right? Because you
Yeah,
have Toronto and London. I think London's going to be one of the dark horses for this team. I think this year.
agreed.
Or I mean, there's just so many more things that who knows? Maybe like Visa scared him off, which I don't think should be an issue. Like, I feel like I would rather face that issue, and then you don't really have a built excuse, but at least you're taking a risk, and I think the fan base would have rather seen that. But you know, again, it could work out really good. They could be a really good respawn team and take a lot of series that way. So it could work out.
They're gonna end up like they're just a team that can probably beat a solid squad on their day. It would be like Paris last year, But I agree. Like if I was the GM, I would have tried to get Harry, and I think like Vortex would have been a great pick. Like I would just given something a go, just give it a go to actually be a contender. Because that's the thing. It seems like 90% of the league has either won a championship last season, so either you've got FaZe winning most of the events and champs, then you've got Toronto won stage 2, you've got Minnesota won stage 5, all those 3 teams stuck together. Then pretty much all the other teams on paper we've discussed have upgraded, and with the exception of Florida, who have a weird roster. Washington, we don't really know what they're doing, but they're brand new, and to be fair, it could be all right with maybe a couple of changes through the season. And then you've got Paris, so it's just like there's a clear like divide between like 9 teams fighting to be top 3 and like 3 teams that won't be. That just is it's just how it seems to me. But and if you have any final thoughts on that, guys, before we move on.
Even the bottom 3 teams, apart from maybe Paris, could still push into the top 3 as well.
Am I lagging for anyone, or is it just me?
No, it's a lot. It's a lion, I think.
Wait, like, can you go again? You were saying something about top 3
Oh, I'm
Paris.
just saying, yeah, no, I was not saying that. I was saying that I think that every team other than Paris can effectively fight for top 3. Like it's that stacked. So,
Mhm. One of those teams is OpTic Dallas. Well, apparently, if you want to bring this up on stream, Omar, we have a
apparently,
tweet from Crone that came out yesterday. OpTic Dallas logo has surfaced, baby. So pretty much seeming to confirm. I mean, look, we kind of know it's happening anyway, but confirming what's going on. So you can see there's an image right here on the right hand side where we can see OpTic Dallas trademark comes through from Envy. You can actually look on this website and see all of kind of Envy's other trademarks they applied for. They applied for like the Envy trademark back in 2017, or like at least under this company name. Maybe they had Envy as a trademark previous to that. Then they had Dallas Empire that came in like 2019 or whatever. And then most recently we've got here they had like Envy TV and stuff during 2020. But yeah, Envy Gaming Incorporated. They look for OpTic Dallas and this logo that you can see right here that I'll bring up on the big screen. So yes, this is apparently what they're going for. It makes a lot of sense actually looking at this related to the other stuff. OpTic Dallas, the OpTic is quite nice. It's kind of interesting just because it's more OpTic than it is Dallas, and I think a lot of people are kind of. I mean, it's no surprise Hex is involved with this. He wants to keep OpTic as much as he can, but I don't know. I think they've done a decent job of the logo. If this is the one, at the same time, it is just sad to me to lose to lose the Dallas Empire because I did. I love that branding, and it's gone. It seems, and we replace it with this. So Dallas Empire will be sorely missed. I think Austin.
Yeah, I really liked the Dallas Empire branding. I felt like that was one of the better brands in the CDL. So losing that really sucks. Obviously this had to happen. I would rather have a league with OpTic in it. So having this happen and having it in a stable environment where they can actually grow for the future instead of like stagnate, which is really what's happened since World War II, is better for the league in the long run. In the short term, it's obviously going to suck, but if it works out well, the next 5 years, next 3 years, it's going to be really, really good for the league. So hopefully it does do well.
I'm actually quite a big fan of the logo. I saw it straight away and I wanted to, well, I actually did try and make one better, and it took me
Mm.
quite a while to get one that was even like decent. So no, I do like it. The one thing I don't like is that optics changed every year for the last 4 years.
That's
And
so
that,
insane.
yeah, it's I was gonna use a weird metaphor, but I won't. I just think yeah, it's kind of lowering the, how can I put this? The almost the worth of optic. Like if it's getting thrown around so much, where it's not like it's one stable entity. It's moving around being multiple different things. And I think like that kind of gets rid of the original feeling of optic, like in 2015, when it was just like a small group of guys living in this house who are really good at gaming, really good at content. And now it's turned into this strange business that's moving around all over the place and not really got a solidified home. So I don't know. Holy shit, is that a wasp? Oh my goodness, it is.
Oh my god, it's
Oh
New
my.
Zealand, baby. We gotta
Oh
get it on
fuck.
cam.
Oh
But no, I
shit.
think you're bang on. Like, I think also the issue with that really is that you can't do any real expansion. I think so many people, including myself, thought that Hex would get Optic back and it'd be like all guns blazing, like let's catch up for lost time, like let's start upgrading the content. Like, I know a lot of people have been roasting Optic for this on Reddit the last couple of weeks, but the content really hasn't changed in many a year. Like, you know,
Still reacting to COD clips.
yeah, what was it called? What was it? Was it Smooth Competition or whatever it was called that they used to do a few years ago with like
Yeah, yeah,
Hitch
yeah.
and stuff? Like that was really cool content that they used to. That was kind of, it almost paved the way for the stuff that you see FaZe and 100 Thieves and all that doing these awesome collabs they do today that Optic just don't seem to do anymore, nor do they expanding into these other, expanding into other esports, right? And really leveling things up. So it's just, I think it was a surprise to a lot of people that Optic came back and like nothing really seems to have changed with Optic in the last year or so, and now they're going to be under a different ownership group again, under Envy. And question really from Spectre was saying like, I hope Dallas Empire as a branding comes back. If and when Optic go off somewhere else, right, and just get sold again. Like there was talks from, there was someone mentioned on Reddit the fact that Dece played for Optic Gaming during Black Ops 4, then he played for Optic Gaming Los Angeles in Modern Warfare, then he played for Optic Chicago, and now he's going to be playing for Optic Dallas. 4 seasons, 4 different optics, just as you say, and Dece's played for all 4 of them, which is just crazy to think about. Like it just show. I just want to hear what the explanation is from X's side as to exactly why this went down and why it was necessary to go down. Because if Hex could fund this himself and make Optic a profitable entity on its own, then I imagine he would want to. Clearly, that's not going to be possible, or maybe he's thinking of expansion and stuff. Like what is possible for Optic within its current reach, and maybe that's not the case without some sort of partner. And I guess even if it makes sense in that sense, but yeah, it's just a really strange one, to be honest, to see these two organizations, the E Classic over so many years kind of combined like this, Austin.
Yeah, as OD's saying, like honestly, I haven't seen a lot of people talk about this. Like, I don't know personally, but I feel like it's more of what like FaZe did. I feel like OpTic is owned by Hex, and I feel like Envy is obviously owned. It's not even owned by Astro, but it's owned by a lot of people now. And I feel like the Dallas like franchise spot, which is separate from Envy, separate from OpTic, is going to be split however many ways, like whether it's Envy have majority or Hex. I would imagine maybe it's 50-50. I feel like OpTic is by itself now, like Hex owns that. um I feel like this was necessary to get OpTic like that, the stability they needed in the league, because obviously the reports that came out said like Energy was really funding the team, and Hex wasn't able to do that, and they weren't able to find. It's the key part of this is they weren't. I don't think they were able, like based off the articles, it was based they couldn't find investors that was a good deal for the team that didn't want like hands on, which means they did find investors but it just wasn't the best situation for OpTic and Hex. So, and I think what that is them learning. I feel like that's them learning from like past experiences, because obviously like every OpTic person is scarred from Infinite to Immortals really didn't do a bad job. It was mostly Infinite. Immortals actually, I feel like a lot of people give them shit, but obviously they didn't really do anything wrong to NRG now, and then so who knows. So basically what I'm hoping that comes out of this deal is that OpTic will be able to expand to other esports, expand their content. Because as you said, like we really haven't, like their content is good for what it is. It's good. It's just not expanding. It's just stagnant. It's great. Like they have a pre-show. They have the podcast is amazing. They try doing these couple of these like weird videos every now and then. Like they did like a mask. Like they had to go through like an obstacle course.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
they do the roasting each other one. So like I don't like they try to do those like smaller things, but like hopefully we do see them doing bigger content stuff like we see other orgs doing that. But to do that, you need stability, you need funding, you need to be able to start a project and know that you can improve and finish the product. So I do think Envy's gonna give them the foundation, the stability, the professionalism. Like not that they didn't have it, but OpTic's gonna bring the content, the name, the big players, the fan base. So they're gonna merge that for the franchising. For people saying it's probably gonna be short term, I don't think so. This is probably gonna be for the long run. You don't like
You don't do these like
yeah,
planning to
you
break it
don't
up.
do this for a year or two, right? Like unless Hex just goes and gets like crazy funding and can afford it by himself, um, then that. But I feel like this deal is happy for him because he can focus on the content. He runs the team, and he's gonna be able to improve OpTic with the stability of Envy, and they're gonna like it's not a rivalry anymore. They're gonna be helping each other. It's gonna be like building together instead of what it is. So, because I feel like we were on the brink of, based off like the reports I've read and stuff like that, we were on the brink of not having OpTic in the league, and that would have been horrible. So, like, this is a very
Jesus.
good, um, like acceptance. Because if Energy wasn't able to fund it, and OpTic wasn't able to find the funding, and Envy wasn't able to merge with it, would we have OpTic this year? And based off the reports, like Energy, like I was reading the Jacob Wolf and Crone ones, is Energy gave him a timeline, and that I mean the timeline was done. So like this this is still good for the league. It sucks short term, it really does, but in long term, it can be really really good. They can build off each other. It's good having brands outside of the CDL that are trying to help the CDL. So obviously you won't have OpTic Dallas, or you won't have Dallas Empire anymore, but maybe that opens up Envy using that in a different esport or in a different way, and that brand can still stay alive because that brand was clean as hell. So yeah, I mean, in the long run, it's hard to see the positives out of this, but there are a lot of positives out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna just break it down a little bit. With the content thing, I think it's really difficult, especially in COD, to make consistent content that people are gonna watch. And so I think OpTic, with their content, have decided to go somewhat safe and like a known entity that is going to get views, and more about the personality than the games they play. Um, and so yeah, I'm okay with that. So, but then I think their merge with Envy kind of allows them to have more of a corporate side, because they've always been a really strong but somewhat independent team with a really large following. And so what they tried to do with Infinite was the same thing, more of a corporate side. What they tried to do with NRG was the same thing, but I think now it's the first time that Hex is joining someone that he has competed with for a long time in Hastro and has like a lot of respect for, because they've grown up in the same scene. So it just makes sense for them to become one. But I'm just hoping that OpTic now can branch out into other games, because I really miss like 2014, 15, 16 when they were competing in multiple titles and had multiple teams that were all championship caliber. And it's just sad that that's no longer the case. It's kind of just a COD team named OpTic that's getting tossed around.
Would you
Who
rather have a
isn't?
content team though? Like a like what kind of like Xset is doing? There's a Brazilian organization, Loud, that is basically they have a couple competitive teams, but it's all content. Would you rather have that for OpTic, or try for them to try to get into other esports? Because I just don't know if they have the budget to be picking up
Yeah, but
if OpTic's in like CS again, like you don't want them to be like the 42nd best team in CS, right?
no. I just if they picked up a Val team and they're like top 5, I'd be happy with that. But that wouldn't
Yeah,
happen.
but that's like millions of dollars. And
Yeah.
I would almost
Um,
rather have that money spent in improving content because with all the personalities that I already have, you could get a lot more and improve the
You do
content.
so much good stuff, man.
Yeah.
I agree. I think that's where my money would go. It's just Hex has got to be looking at like what Nadeshot's doing over 100 Thieves and what like these other organizations are doing that have like leveled up and just completely blown past OpTic the last few years. Like since the whole infinite acquisition type stuff, like OpTic was leading the way in esports for a while, as you say, Lion, when the content was out of control, but they were also dominating. Like they had the Halo team, they had the Gears of War team, they had a CS team that won the E League like season 2, whatever the playoffs thing
yeah, the
was.
COD team was
Best
dominating.
COD team in the world. They had like insane content, like absolutely killing the game all across the park. And that's completely fallen off to the point where it's now like, well, where do they rebuild from? But I just see so much of the stuff that 100 Thieves and these other organizations are doing, and even NRG,
Yeah.
right, themselves, like the actual main organization. Like they put out content that gets insane views on like Fortnite stuff and like content creators that I have no idea who they are, but like clearly people love their stuff, right? And the amount of like the great personalities on OpTic is what makes that team. And there's been a lot of talk like if Nadeshot and Scump, if Hex and OpTic weren't in kind of right place, right time when Nadeshot and Scump, where would it be today? That's an interesting question, but you still have the opportunity to use Scump and the other great personalities you still have on that organization because pretty much everyone who was a part of OpTic and that kind of family wants to still be there. You've got Big Time, you've got Karma, you've got Formal. Like you could do some really cool stuff if you started to expand that content team and make it and just bring some other people on to actually direct that stuff, right? Rather than Hex just leading the show and doing Pine Park and dealing with all the OpTic stuff by himself. Like I don't know if maybe this Envy move is going to help him kind of delegate and bring, because that's what Hastro did, right? He stepped back from being the CEO to be the chief gaming officer to let someone else step in to actually do the CEO role, so he gets to do what he wants to do where he's effective, and someone else gets to do what he wants to do where he's effective. And maybe like I don't know, maybe this could be the revival of OpTic, right? Which I think it'd be good to see for everyone.
I just hope they don't rush because like what I love that like Hastro and Nade did is they were the stupidest men in the room, which means like they surrounded themselves with so many smart people that knew what they were doing. Like every successful businessman wants to be the dumbest man in the room because that means you have the right group around you. And like I don't know, I feel like OpTic has never had like they've been a lot of great personalities in a family environment, but like after the like selling and it just didn't go well, they stalled. Like 100 Thieves and NRG even and Phase is like what OpTic should have been, and just I almost think it's like too late now. Like, it's so rough, but I almost think it's too late because um if I'm OpTic, you kind of got to like start small and like building back up. And I have a feeling they're just gonna try to go big, and if it's like if it works, it works, and they'll start growing again. But they need the stability, they need the infrastructure around them, they need to slowly build it up. Like do like more content series that become regular. Like the OpTic podcast is a regular. Like you need other programming around that, and then build yourself up from there. Start small, build your infrastructure, build your foundation, use Envy the way that they should be used, and then grow from there. Not make a huge slam dunk, but who knows?
Yeah. Low key, I would have liked to have seen OpTic merge with 100 Thieves. Like
Oh my
that
god,
would
you
have
imagine?
been a madness. And then we'd still have Dallas Empire in the league. And no one,
I don't think it would
let's
ever
be
happen
honest, no
though.
one, no one really
Nature wants
cares.
to do his own thing now.
It
Yeah,
doesn't make
nah, he
sense.
wants to branch out, and no, it makes no
Yeah.
sense, Oscar.
Yeah.
It's just like a hypothetical.
No. I know, but like oh man, it would just be like like your father, like the son went off and then like the father like had to come back. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, but it would be huge, and no one really cares about. Oh, I don't want to say that. But LA Thieves right now don't have the biggest fan base, do they?
It's so weird. You think they would?
No, but it's
They
A
started
good
off so
point though.
fast.
they had 47 players on their team last year. I think that's
Well,
the
to be
problem.
fair, they had the same
I
amount
think
as
they'll get
London.
there though.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
London also had 47.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question though with LA Thieves really. How like they don't don't draw quite the attention you thought they might do. Especially
They're
what 100
winning, they
Thieves
would.
do in other esports. I agree. I think that's the key. Like, am I correct in saying, Austin, that FaZe were the fastest growing in terms of social media? You guys grew the quickest this past year out of any team in terms of metrics.
So we grew the fastest on Instagram. I know
Mm.
that, but we've been really, really, really big on Instagram from day one, just because
Even your Twitter, I
a lot
feel
of
like
our-
blew up this year. Atlanta FaZe's Twitter.
yeah. I'm actually gonna bring it up real quick,
I
but
feel like Toronto would have grown like the most percentage though because of their like rise to power almost.
there's a lot of good social media. Like
There
obviously,
is.
like Gersh is in here. Like New York does a fantastic job. Toronto does a really, really good job. I love
Florida.
Patter in Florida and London. So there's a lot.
Let's just
See
not
here.
mention Paris. That doesn't even exist.
I don't think they have social media.
No, they've forgotten it.
They came back for one day when Florida called them out, and that was it.
Really? One
Yeah,
day.
yeah, they did. That was kind of funny. They came back for a day, but yeah, I don't know. I think you're right. Really, I just think that like FaZe, if they keep winning, their personalities and where the names go and the name value and stuff just keeps rising. And having Envoy as well is helpful. I think Octane also is very helpful. One of the biggest personalities in the scene that isn't on OpTic, if you know, pretty much. So yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. But yeah, interesting point from Odie. He mentioned a while ago, like leaves open the Dallas, you know, like Complexity or something. Obviously, there's a Dallas team at the moment, but Complexity want to come in. There's other orgs that want to come in. Hopefully next year we get it. As Odie said, right, stability being the operate word. And if OpTic can survive 2 years as OpTic Dallas, then come on, boys, we're looking good. Crazy scenes, to be honest.
We've got
The
no
other,
idea what's gonna happen next year. Anyway, sorry.
hopefully expansion comes in for sure.
Yeah.
E United or Cole can only have one. Who you taking? I'm taking Complexity. Complexity, bigger org, bigger, richer COD history, and more
Oh, I reckon
funding.
pretty similar in
Ah,
reality.
come on, Complex. I mean, you're
Tim
probably
the Tat
right,
Man.
but like,
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know. To me,
They have the
Complexity.
Dallas Cowboys in their back pocket too.
Complexity have this like massive. Do they not have like a massive facility? Like, I feel like they have a lot of cash. They
Yeah,
changed
they're
their
backed by the
logo,
Dallas Cowboys. I'm pretty sure.
and actually the logo's. I mean, the
Yeah, the
logo's a
logo,
star, isn't it? Which is
the
basically OpTic
Dallas
Dallas.
Cowboys
It
logo.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. All right. I don't know much about the Dallas Cowboys. Wanted to talk about this though. I don't know if you could bring this up on screen Omar again because it's kind of funny. Yeah, obviously Jason Lake and co. So effectively, what went on yesterday is that there was a Twitter account at OpTic Dallas that was rebranded after Scump said he was signed to this account, which I thought was hilarious. Really, you've got this boy Mark. He's 42. He's a sports fan. He's from Manchester, and apparently he's a Manchester United fan, even though he's come out of absolutely nowhere and started, you know, just posting tweets about the United game. The next United game's on Saturday against Spurs at 5:30 p.m. So some people are saying that's what Opti are going to announce. But you know, what I just noticed actually, or what people were pointing out to me the last few hours about this OpTic Dallas account is the person who sold it to well, to this Mark, quote unquote Mark guy. So no, this is the at of this individual that sold the OpTic Dallas at is now Tiny Kitten Cats. And anyway, there's a discussion between Grateful right here, if you guys can see this on the screen. With yeah, anyway, so he or she, whatever, sold it for 150. If you know about this, like you could have sold this app for way more than 150. Could you imagine what you could have sold this app for? I would have been like,
$150.
but apparently that's what I'm seeing here. 150. It's got to be $150.
I reckon
Like
you
I
could
would
have
have.
got it for 20 grand.
That's what I was thinking. I would have said
Probably.
to Hex, I'd have said to Hex like 100k and just see what offer you get. And if he says 20k, you're like, okay, 20k, that's not too bad. Like maybe
$150.
let's. There's no way it's 150. Like if Tiny Kitten Cats knew like how much, because like Hex doesn't want anything but the OpTic. Like obviously right now you see this as a lowercase, but like it's very easy to change this to like the capital O, the capital T or whatever, the capital D, which I'm sure will be there. once you have the app set up. But like, I think that's what they're saying. They paid 150, but like,
Bro got a
I'd have come,
high five for the account.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, I'd have come in with a big figure because, like, you gotta know, like, you gotta look up why this random Mark guy wants to buy. I don't know. Like, obviously, that's what I guess why he comes in as Mark, so it's not like a big organization. But I mean, yeah, look at this explanation. He told me that was because he used to call his brother like that. Like OpTic Dallas, the guy's name is not Mark, and he's not 42 years old. So there you go. It's fake news. I don't want to get into trouble. I don't know what's going on. Maybe he really is that Mark, and the other name was fake. Since he told me he was related to his brother and him playing soccer, I think he's an imposter. That's kind of where it finishes.
Wait.
But
Wait. So they finessed the guy by pretending to be someone else.
that's what I'm thinking. Did they finesse their former owner of OpTic Dallas by saying, "Oh yeah, I'm this Mark guy. Oh yeah, 150 for the ad sounds about fair." Whereas in reality, of course, it is monster organization coming in. Maybe this is how you
That's
do it,
fucking
right?
hilarious, bro. That
I mean,
is
if this
so
is true, like
funny.
that is kind of funny, but
I used to
you
call
know,
my brother Dallas, or from. I used to call him OpTic, or from Dallas.
there's no
I'll give
like,
you
there's no
150
way.
and a firm handshake.
Yeah, exactly, man. Like, what is that about?
Wow.
Absolutely incredible scenes. That might be if Justin Pistachio and the boys have pulled it off. That's the ultimate finesse right there.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, mate, you could consider it to be somewhat questionable business practices, but you know,
Well, it's smart.
it's if it's yeah, exactly. If they thought it was a fair price, then it's a fair price. But just be ready for me to be hoarding all these apps for the next few years and negotiating like my life depends on it. But okay, yeah, maybe this is all BS, but I don't know. I'm going to talk about it tomorrow anyway because it's absolutely hilarious. So yeah, we do think that that's what's going to happen. We think that Mark is going to rebrand to OpTic Dallas at some point. I mean, he's already OpTic Dallas, but maybe
Mark.
it's going to happen. People already think the follow. So I mean, who does he
Hex
follow
has paid
actually?
that with one.
He follows United people. I mean, it's kind of suspicious, isn't it? Let's be honest, that he just happens to follow a few Man United people by Ronaldo, Rashford, Lingard. I don't know if I buy it, Justin, if you're watching. Shout out Mark, man. Oh, that's
Hex
crazy.
fines his players more for leaving a mess at the HQ than that
Yeah.
guy got paid for the social media account.
Wow.
No, that's not
That's
Mark Goldbridge
insane.
anymore. But it could be. Oh
Um,
man. Yeah,
It is kind of cool if they do it with he said like I can't wait for the Man U game on Saturday. Like if that's actually imagine if they drop the process and everything at the same time the Man U game starts. Like if they honestly like linked that and did all that, that would be pretty sick.
they'd have done well there, to be fair. To be fair, it does all align with what we think.
exactly. Imagine if the Man United team came out in OpTic jerseys.
You've completely lost the plot now. But
Man
yeah, I
City
mean, why
came out in
not?
phase. Man City
Man,
came out in
We
phase.
that's
man.
actually
we
a good
already
point.
actually we
That's
have
a good
we have
point.
Man City jerseys or
You
yeah
do,
for
you
phase.
do. So maybe,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
maybe
actually sick.
Ronaldo comes out and he shakes Scump's hand, and
Yeah,
then and Sir Alex Ferguson comes down from the stands, and Hex is there, and they have a nice little
Odie,
picture taking
you and the
ceremony.
boys need like a what team is Salah on? At this
Liverpool.
Come
messed up
on.
menu. You guys need some Liverpool jerseys. So, like everyone in the CDL is with a PL team.
Well, exactly, yeah. It's okay. OpTic X Man United. You heard it here first. Like, you should be designing the logos and the merch for that line. I think
Oh, I should.
think you could kill it. That'd be pretty cool. Yeah, London Will Ravens and Liverpool, the
I
classic
know.
combo.
Yeah.
Yeah, like get Omar on the case. He'll hook you up with Arsenal and the boys. But
There you go.
we've been going for quite a while here. There's one more topic I want to dive into before we take some questions from the chat here. So if you've got questions, throw them down there. We'll discuss this, then we'll finish off the episode, and we'll save a couple of things possibly for next week because don't know how much is going to happen this week. Remains to be seen. But Zuma mentioned on the flank yesterday that OpTic were at least considering looking at Cammy to get his services on board. We saw that I don't know if it's Adamu or if it's Adamu. Like it sounds like it should be Adamu. Like Adamu just doesn't sound right. But anyway, like he was Grayson over at Toronto was kind of saying that like the guys re-signed, but then at the end of the year we kind of redid their contracts anyway to say that okay, yeah, you are worth more than whatever the minimum was that you haven't that we paid for you maybe during Modern Warfare. Now we're going to put you on a real contract to make sure you don't feel hard done by not going elsewhere. So that's good to hear. But you know, when this whole situation was going down with clinics not being signed, and we saw like Los Angeles Thieves considering getting clinics potentially, OpTic it seems were considering this before the merger went down. I guess they were thinking, okay, Formal's going to go. Like they were probably thinking of getting rid of Formal anyway, regardless of if he retired or not. I mean, that was basically the case, right? When Formal was like told that he was going to be dropped and yeah, he decided to retire, which is a sensible choice. Dece probably wanted to be in the main anyway. So it's like, okay, do we just keep at that point? This is pre-merger. Scump, Envoy, Dece, and then Cammy comes in as the flex. That'd be really interesting, especially for like there's a lot of OpTic fans, obviously all around the world, but like in the UK, for example, a lot of OpTic fans in the UK. That would have been a really, I don't know, nice kind of collab to see Cammy and OpTic. Like that'd be insane. Also like a really like like funny guy as well that you don't really see too much on the content side, but I think he could be good in their stuff. And also incredibly talented. So another hypothetical roster for you to dig your teeth into, Austin. Scump Envoy, Cammy Dece. It's talented. I don't know whether it has all the pieces required, and I don't know if I like it as much as this actual OpTic Dallas team they're forming. Probably not, but it would have been interesting.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I mean, Cammy's like him and Cell are the best two flexes in the game. So like those two makes perfect sense. So I mean, it's a scary lineup. Like anyone with Cammy on their team's gonna be really good. That's why like I give Toronto like an A+ this offseason for keeping their whole squad together without losing anybody. And you know they have a big coaching staff that kept everyone, and they added like a fantastic substitute. So honestly, that would have been a scarier team. I'm kind of glad it didn't form because you know Dash was actually really on the slower end for ARs last year. Cammy was really fast, so that works out. You would have probably seen Dashy and do more of the objective like dirty work for the team, where Cammy's just more slaying. So as long as those two guys worked out well, like that team would have banged. So yeah.
In my opinion, Dashie, Cammy, Shotzi, Scump would be the only team that could compete talent-wise with FaZe if there was a team that was formed. But yeah, I don't think that would ever happen. But was it going to be instead just Cammy replacing Formal? Was that what you were proposing?
That's what I proposed. I don't know if that's what they were thinking, but I do remember that Envoy said at some point, kind of towards the end of the season, that he was kind of expecting like 95% chance that he would stay on the team. It was only this like crazy merger stuff that went down that meant that he wasn't there anymore. Well, not maybe only, but like the merger was one of the key reasons why Envoy like found himself losing out. Otherwise, he probably would have still been there because I'm sure they wanted him still to be there, right? Given like how the Prince or whatever, and of course Dece wasn't going anywhere, Scump wasn't going anywhere. So I imagine that's what they were thinking. And yeah, that would have been exciting. As it's turned out, it's been more chaotic than that. But I think we'll just take one question from the chat because we've been going for quite a while. Omar put it in the chat, so thanks very much, from Frothy Siggy a while ago. I'm not really too sure what to say on this. I'm sure you'll have some good thoughts on this, Austin. Question for the end of the show. Which changes do you want to see for challenges this year to mend the talent pipeline as expansion is hopefully in the horizon for the next couple of years? Because we're finding really that a lot of these pro players that are retiring, the likes of Aqua, the likes of Apathy, and others, are just basically saying, look, I don't want to deal with challenges and the amount that you have to play, the kind of host screwing each other over situation that you get, the potential of cheaters in the game, all these issues with challenges just mean that and also like the fact that if you're going to pick up a player from challenges, it's likely going to be like a young, unproven guy than like a veteran player, kind of meaning that it's just really difficult for a lot of these players. Like no one really wants to play challenges, right? It's kind of like it's probably not done in the best possible way, and I'm not really sure what I would do to fix it. But I know that you watched a fair bit of it this year, Austin.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't think Challengers is bad. Like, Challengers is better than what the online pro leagues used to be back in the day. Like there is a lot of unfortunate host wars and stuff like that, but that's been a part of Call of Duty for decades now. I think they took a lot of steps forward this past year with the elite. I think they're taking a lot of steps forward this year. There's a foundation there that's gonna keep going, keep getting better. So I think the pipeline is actually pretty amazing when you think about it. So when you look back to Black Ops 4, the Pro League playoffs, right? That was the 10 best teams in the game were there, right? 25 out of 40 of those players gone from the league, right? That means 25 new young kids have come in since then. Modern Warfare at the end of the year, 50 starters, the 50 starters in the last stage right before champs, right? 26 of them gone, right? This year, Cold War, we had 63 starters over the course of the season. That's 15 new starters over the course. 21 of them are gone, right? So there, like, as much as people meme it, there is a clear pipeline of talent being like flushed through to the pro league. We just don't really, a lot of people just negate that because there's still a lot of talent in the bottom side, like in the challengers, but there is a clear flow of incoming new talent in the league, right? So I just feel like they just need to, stabilize. I think they need to grow on the elite, stabilize the open tournaments, and show that. I think the biggest detriment is that Warzone is doing so big. So it's like the older players. They're obviously not going to. You're not going to get another chance in the pro league. If you get kicked out of the pro league, the odds are you're going to have a low likelihood you making it back in the pro league. So it's less stress, less wear, and probably just as much money to go into Warzone and stream and do that and be a part of that, right? For younger players, the challengers and the CCL are great ways to get known, to get into the pro league. So I just think we're starting to see the evolution of the AM circuit, especially with the Warzone, just making that go even faster. I don't think it's the challenger system is flawed. I just think there's another option that's easier, that makes more money, and that's why you see pros tend to go that way because they already have a big fan base. Whereas younger kids, they're still going to grind through the challengers. They're going to be trying to get into the elite because, I mean, look, there's a lot of amateur talent. I'm looking at our top 20 AM list from 2020, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of them have gotten into the pro league, right? And or have started within the last year, or are going to start this next year. So there are heaps and bounds of talent. So I just think they just have to expand on the elite going into next year and keep chugging that out because the elite was really, really great. Maybe if they can have lands for global challenges, like the top 4 from NA and the top 4 from EU, and in the elite go to a land somewhere and play. But it's going to be tough to get opens back for the next 2-3 years. You probably won't see opens back for a long time with COVID. So just keep expanding that online infrastructure.
I agree with majority of what you're saying. And we've disagreed on this probably since the start of the CDL, is that I
Yeah.
hate that challengers teams never get the opportunity to play against franchise teams. And I understand all the arguments why not. Yeah, but I still believe that's a limiting factor for anticipation and growth for both the CDL and the challengers. Because being able to see those teams that aren't franchise teams be able to make their way up and deserve to play against these top teams just is amazing for those players, and it gives them a spotlight they wouldn't normally have. Whereas I still believe that you can separate them, have the CDL run throughout the whole year, and then maybe at champs you bring in 10 challengers teams to compete against them. It's like a massive finale for the whole year. And I 100% get why that won't happen, but I don't get why it shouldn't happen. If you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's still ways they can do that. They can do like show matches that don't mean because you're never gonna be able to do it with any prize money. So if they do like show matches during the off season, during like during the first 3 months of the game when there's really nothing going on, they you still do that. But I just think obviously it's an Americanized like view on it. Like we've always like all of the 4 biggest leagues in the world all are like that Americanized like structure, and that's what they're trying to copy, and they're trying to like make it like stable. Because I mean, even in like Black Ops 4, we had a lot of sketchy orgs get in, so like that's what they're trying to limit. Like I get it. It's just they need to keep like it's tough because they do the broadcast for challengers. It doesn't get much views, right? You're burning money in that way, and it's really it sucks. But I mean, the best thing that everyone can do for challengers is to watch those streams and support it because right now it doesn't really make much fiscal sense. As bad as that sounds, like it just doesn't make much fiscal sense to do a lot of the stuff. They just have to streamline it and make it as efficient as possible, and just keep supporting them as much as they can. So Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. It does suck because that's what like
Yeah.
Call of Duty like used to be. That's what Halo is going to be when it launches. It does suck, but if it works out in the long run and it creates a stability, creates a stable league that has high salaries, because if you think about it, our salaries in our league are very high compared to other esports, and we don't have very high viewership. So it's like it is a little bit of a bubble, as some would say, but you know, yeah, I just think we have like as Walworth just said, Charlie, like take notes from other things like the contender series in UFC, take notes from other leagues that do the amateur side, and just try to steal as much as possible, right, and learn from it. So they'll get
Yeah.
there. I feel like they'll get there eventually. They gotta.
Yeah.
I
My other
agree.
option for it would be, and I've said this for the last 2 years as well, is every team having an academy team. But obviously that doesn't
That
make much financial sense, but I would love to see that.
that makes the most amount of sense of anything. Just have an
Mm.
academy league. Have like the A league, the academy league, and then like opens. Like
Yeah.
there's your pipeline right there.
It's your
But
pillars, baby.
yeah,
The three
I
pillars
hope
of the
that's the
logo.
future.
Yeah, because it gives the academy teams essentially free promotion being tied to these top teams, which grows those amateur players and that lower league because it actually relates to the main league. You could see players going in and out of the academy team to the front, like the main team, swapping in
Mhm.
and out, and like that's exciting in itself because it gives more flexibility to player movement and roster changes. But hey, oh,
I mean,
I agree for sure that
hopefully,
like it'd be awesome to see like how that would go, right? In terms of like let's say Paris were at the top of the amateur league or whatever, or like FaZe are leading both leagues. It's like damn, they must be doing something right there. Or I don't know, like I agree. Good go on, Austin.
it frees up like having an academy league frees up player movement too because you do more trades. You can trade like a veteran player for like
Mm.
some players off the academy team that have a future. You're hedging your future on those academy players. So like it does make a lot of sense to do that. It adds us another spotlight. It just once the lands come back, I really think they might try to force that. Like who knows? Because I don't know. There's got to be a way to have that and and do pretty well. Because I would be interested to see like who like Dallas picks up on their academy team, who we scout,
Mm.
who
yeah,
I want to see. I want to see that. That's something I'm really interested in. So I do hope that happens eventually.
yeah.
I
So there
think
we
like
are.
the land is a key one as well, just because, and also just playing against it because as you say, Lion, like I think the options are either you try and find a way to for the pros to play against them, which isn't really going to happen outside of maybe eights, but also like these potential show
World
matches
Cup.
or World Cup. Yeah, of course, that'd be fantastic. The other thing is like if there are lands, like pros will put a lot more stock in a player they think is nasty if they've seen him do it on LAN than they will if it's just online. Like it doesn't matter if he's still playing the same guys on LAN that he is online. They'll just put more stock in that performance. And the pros will actually watch those. Like I don't know how many of the pros really sit there and watch a lot of the challengers players. Probably not an awful lot, which to be fair isn't necessarily their job. But they'll
It'll
more
be
than
word
likely
of
watch
mouth.
what's going on
I mean,
online. Sorry.
Yeah.
One thing that's crucial is honestly the AMs going to online is probably the best thing that happened to them because
Mm,
every match for like EU or for the elite is broadcasted, so you see a lot more. But when you had the opens, when you had the amateur lands, none of that like VOD was available. None of
mm.
it. Like it was all word of mouth. It was all
That's a good point.
screenshots of scoreboards and stuff like that. So at least now you like if I wanted to go scout like a player, I could go see the elite VODs, I could go see the open VODs, I can go see the scouting ground VODs, I can go see like all that stuff and like get stuff from that and see how they did online. Like are they still making the right plays? Yada yada. So they have to include that once they go back to land somehow.
Well. I think we should call it there, ladies and gentlemen. Been a great show. I'm getting pretty tired. We've gone for an hour 30. Um, Gents, any final thoughts before we close it out? I'll go to you, Lion.
Um, Keep an eye on the top 20. We're posting to every day. Top 20 of Cold War.
Mm,
And yeah, follow our Twitter if you're not already.
damn right. And the Twitch, and the YouTube, and the Spotify, and the Apple Podcast.
Not on. Yeah, we
Yeah,
just
Austin's been killing it on the top 20. Lion's been killing it as well. We're banging out, as I say, a couple every day. Got Octane at 18, Claystreet 17. I think the thing where we can see like content, like how the content people voted it against how the coaches voted it, that's really, really good. And we're just elevating the game, baby.
Here we are. Crazy.
Awesome stuff. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. It's been an absolute pleasure. And well, yes, we will see you this time next week. We'll try and get a guest on, or we'll try and do something as more announcements start coming out. We'll continue to try and do these, and we're really realizing that the guest episodes, people really enjoy them. So that's we'll try and do those throughout the majority of the season as well, where possible. But exciting times ahead. Thanks for watching as always. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you next time.